Hello and welcome to the Quietly Visible podcast. I'm your host, Carol Stewart, founder of The Bounding Solution and author of Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman. And this is the podcast for introverted women who want to thrive as leaders and in life. Now today I'm talking about career stages and pursuing what you want in your career for where you are at this stage of your life. Now, I remember having a conversation a few years ago with a woman who she'd got a young family, got young children, and she was quite happy being a stay-at-home mum. But she felt under a lot of pressure that she had to get a job, she had to have it all, so to speak. And she enjoyed spending these early years with her children and being there for them. She wasn't, well off, financially or in a great position to be able to afford to do it, but she felt it was very important. But the pressure that she was getting from people to go out and get a job was playing on her. And I asked her, well, what is it that was important to her? And she recognized that staying at home with her children in their sort of formative years was something that really mattered to her. It was important to her. And I helped her to see that if that is what she wanted, then not to be swayed by other people's opinions or what other people think. And I see that this is something that can often happen to women, that we conform to what other people want of us or expect of us, and not necessarily think about where we're at whatever stage in our lives that we are in. And as we go through our career stages, or as we sort of advance in our years, we will want different things at different stages in our lives. And there's a particular piece of research by, I can't remember the names, I think it's Manera and Sullivan, that looked at what's called the Kaleidoscope Careers. And they looked at, in the early stages of their careers, women were looking for challenge, and it's often the case that, as you're starting out in your career and you're trying to make a mark for yourself and you've not got any commitments or responsibilities, that you are looking for a challenge. You're looking to improve yourself and climb that career ladder. And then when women get to their mid-careers, they're looking for balance. And this often coincides with a time where, women have started to have families, have children, got caring responsibilities. And so balance is important. And then once they get to their late careers, they're looking for authenticity. They want to be their authentic selves and do something which is authentic to who they are. And when I look at this particular model, I can relate to my career stages and where I was at. I think back to my early career and making that transition from Sheffield, where I was born and grew up, to London at the age of 19, and sort of having this big wide world, so to speak, and all that came with it, and the opportunities that I was able to tap into in my early career. And deciding when I think back to my sort of late career, before I left employment and started my coaching business, and wanting to be my authentic self. I remember going through a phase where, I felt, I don't want to be putting on a mask any longer. I just want to be authentic and do things which are authentic. And that phase of my career has lasted for a while now, since I left employment in 2011 to start my coaching business to today, wanting to be my authentic self, wanting to do things which are authentic and wanting to work authentically. And, even though I've sort of used an example of this particular model, it's not set in stone, because even though you may be in your early career, you may still want to be authentic, you may still want balance. And one of the things that I particularly recognize now with the sort of Generation Zs, is that they're looking for more balance than probably what I was when I was their age, in that they're looking for their careers to be more experiential with their lives. And so, I look at the younger ones in my family, the Gen Zs in my family, and they like to travel a lot. They like to experience different things, and they like to balance that with their work. They want work which enables them to do all of this, to be able to travel. One of my nephews in particular, he's always traveling. He's carving out a great career for himself in cybersecurity, having sort of gone to university and graduated with a first, and now pursuing a great career. But he's also pursuing his traveling around the world, and I really admire that. And so knowing what you want and what particular stage of your life you are is important if you are to have an enjoyable and fulfilling career. And I know it's not always possible to do what you want when you want, because circumstances, commitments may dictate otherwise. But getting that clarity about where you're at this stage in your life and what is important to you can help you to think about the choices that you make for your career. And I'll give you an example of myself. When I was in employment, and probably in my early to mid career, and I was studying law through the Institute of Legal Executives, and the idea or the plan for me was that I would go that route to become qualified as a solicitor. And it was during this time that I was studying that my son's father and we separated, and my son at the time was 6 years old, and I became a single mum with a mortgage to pay and a full-time job and a young child. And I completed my studies and started to look for work, and got offered a position with a law firm that I used to work in the courts. They were regular lawyers at my courts, and the managing partners offered me a position, and it was an attractive position, and they were starting up a conveyancing department, and they wanted me to head that up. I could have gone there, I could have finished my solicitor training, but the initial salary that they were offering me was less than what I was earning at that time. And also, I was working for the civil service, which had a lot of securities at that time that you didn't necessarily get in the private sector. And when I told them about, the salary that they were offering me being less than what I was currently on, they said to me that I would eventually far out earn anything I could ever expect to earn in the organisation that I was in. And whilst that was attractive at the time, I had to make a decision based on where I was at that stage in my life. And as a single mum with a mortgage to pay, I recognised that I needed something which felt a bit more secure. I couldn't afford to take a drop in salary, even though I would eventually far out earn anything that I could possibly earn in the organisation that I was in. But at that particular moment in time, what I was earning was enough for me to get by as a single mum with a mortgage to pay. And so taking a drop in salary was a no-no for me. And as much as I wanted to, I made a decision based on my circumstances at the time. Now, whether that was the right decision or the wrong decision, I don't know. I think back then I was also risk averse, more risk averse than what I am now. So to me, it was too risky. In hindsight, if I was faced with that choice again, would I make the same decision? I think maybe not. I think maybe because I am not as risk averse, well, I am still to a certain degree, I think maybe I may have gone for it on the understanding that no matter what, I will be okay, I will find a way, rather than doing it out of that being risk averse. But at the same time, the decision I made felt right for me at that particular time. And I decided that I was going to stay in the organisation that I was in and pursue a leadership career there. Where I worked was very flexible for me in terms of my start times and finish times, which enabled me to drop my son off to the childminder who took him to school and pick him up after as well. And it was also close to where I worked. It was driving distance, a short drive. When I say short drive, probably about 20 minutes to half an hour drive, which meant that I was close by should anything happen at school, that it wouldn't take me long to get there. Whereas if I was to go elsewhere and sort of say be working further away, having to do a long commute, I would also may not necessarily get the kind of flexibility that I had where I was. So I made that decision that I would stay in the organisation and pursue a leadership career there, which is what I did. And I also made the decision to stay at the same location until my son was at an age where he was able to go to and from school by himself. And that is what I did. And once he got to an age where he was going to and from school by himself, I then got promoted, and I got promoted again, and went to different locations which were a lot further away from home. But I did what was right for me and my son based on my circumstances, my situation at that particular time. And then when it came to making the decision to leave employment and to start my business, by this time my son was away at university, and not having any sort of commitments as such in terms of, young people that were dependent on me. I was able to make that decision that I was going to leave employment, retrain, restudy, and pursue my own business. And yes, that was a risk, and I was still pretty risk averse at the time, but I did that knowing that, if the worst was to happen, I had choices. I could always go back and get a job. And so thinking about where you are at this particular stage in your life and what it is that you want for your career, thinking about your family, and when you're thinking about what it is that you want for your career, don't just look at it in isolation to the rest of your life. Look at it holistically and look at your whole life and how your career fits into your whole life as well. If you're in your early stages of your career, just starting out in your career, then think about, what you want for your future life. Are you wanting a family? And how does that factor in to your career? I remember some years ago meeting a woman who was in her, I think, mid to late 40s, and she had not had children, and she was regretting having been so career focused that she hadn't made time to have a family. And the messages that she was getting, she said, was about, focus on your career, focus on your career, focus on your career, which is what she did. And it got to a stage in her life now where she was regretting that she made that decision and not made time to incorporate that into her life, that she wanted to have a family. And you can have a family and still pursue a career and progress in your career and progress as a leader in your career. And what often happens is that women experience what is known as mom guilt, that they will have a family but they want to pursue their leadership career and they feel guilty. And I always encourage women that are in this position to do what is best for them and their families if they've got a family. And yes, there's a lot of pressure that women can have it all. And the thing is, yes, we can have it all, but we can't have it all at the same time. So if you're wanting to pursue a leadership career, get to executive level, get to the board level, and still have a family, yes, that is possible, but there will be certain sacrifices that you will have to make along the way. You may be able to get support in to help like a nanny or people to help you with the responsibilities of raising a family. And if you are in a marriage or you have a partner, then hopefully it will be a partnership where you're both taking responsibility. If you're on your own, then it's the case of, well, what support do you need and what support can you get in? And it's about recognizing that if you're wanting this senior leadership career, if you're wanting this executive career, that you may not necessarily get to spend the amount of time that you want to with your children. And if that's the case, the time that you do spend with them, make sure that you're spending quality time. Quality time is better than spending lots of time with them, but you're not actually present with them. And I remember another conversation having with somebody who was juggling a senior leadership career as well as family commitments, and was finding it challenging. And so what I got her to do was to look at all the things that she was doing that she didn't need to be doing. What things could she outsource, as in get help in to help with? And when she is able to identify things that she could do, like get a cleaner, get someone to do things like the ironing, the laundry, those sorts of things that would that needed to be done, but would take up her time from spending that quality time with her children. And she was able to get a better balance and not worry about things that weren't being done or things that she had to do around the home. Another client that I had was being made redundant, or rather her role was being made redundant, and was finding it difficult getting a role doing what she wanted. And she was a mature woman in her 50s. She'd got children who were young adults but also had learning needs, so they were still fairly dependent on her. She was the breadwinner. She was the main breadwinner, and more than her husband. And she was worrying about how she would manage. And what I got her to do was to explore the stage she was at her life and what it was that she really wanted. And she was able to recognize and identify what she wanted. And it required her making some decisions that she probably wouldn't have made, but recognizing that she was at this stage in her life. She still had children that were not fully dependent on her, but semi-dependent on her. She was the main breadwinner, and she recognised that she'd never pursued financial support and had been reluctant to, but recognised that because she had worked all her life practically, she was entitled to claim some financial support, financial help, until she was able to get back on her feet, or to get back into a position where she could go out and she could get the job, that kind of job that she wanted to. So where are you at this stage in your life? And is where you are at working for you? And if it's not working for you, if you recognise that you've outgrown that particular phase in your career and you're ready to do something different or get a different type of balance, or maybe make a career transition, then think about what is important for you at this stage of your life. Thank you for listening, and if you're looking to increase your confidence, influence and impact, and having completed the free assessment on my website, go to aboundingsolutions.com. Under the free resources tab, there is a free assessment you can complete